Everybody joining me next up on the Weekend Blitz. We're talking National Football League, starting in division by division previews each week, a different division, doing the AFC East this week on the show. And joining me, as I always do when I want to talk AFC East, I reached out to Matt Barbato. Check him out at the Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. And Matt, it's good to talk to you. I know when we do this, it means it's getting close to football season, but it's always good to talk to you.
I know, Phillip. It's great to talk to you, too. I feel like whenever I go on your show, it's like a milestone. I feel like we do like the preseason preview of a division, and then we kind of check back in during the middle of the season, and then before you know it, it's like the Super Bowl, and we're doing a preview. So I appreciate you having me back on.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and we will have some interesting conversation on some of these teams. Obviously, I think the Jets conversation will be a fun one. I'm just going to say, people that know me. Know where my allegiance lies when it comes to NFL, and of course you as well with your favorite team. So that's kind of like that'll be a crossover segment there on this conversation when we get to the Jets. But the AFC East overall, and I look at the division's better now than it was last year. I think it's got a whole lot more competitive. Just overall, what are your thoughts on the AFC East going into the season?
I think it's a division that could definitely get three teams in the playoffs. In fact, it almost did with New England and the Jets sort of puttering out at the end of the season. But yeah, the division is really, really strong from top to bottom. I mean, Buffalo is obviously the team to beat. They are the most complete team in the division. Teams like Miami and the Jets are upstart teams, and I know we'll get to the Dolphins and the unfortunate injury to Jalen Ramsey, but both of those teams have really, really high ceilings. And then your cellar dweller is New England, who it's Bill Belichick. They're still going to be a pain to play against every week. They're not going to be an easy win. I'm not a huge believer in a lot of their talent, but I mean, it's still Bill Belichick. It's still going to be a good defense, and that's your fourth place team most likely. So this division's pretty loaded. I think I think the AFC North is really good. Obviously, the NFC East is pretty talented, but I don't know, man. I think by the end of the year, the AFC East could have could be the best division in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, very possible. Like you said, to get three playoff teams out of this division when you just look at the quarterbacks in the division and start at the top. And for everybody out there, just so nobody believes any bias, we're going in alphabetical order talking about these teams. So you don't get an idea, especially where Matt's going to lean on all this stuff until we get to the very end of the conversation. We get to our four. But the Buffalo Bills, and with 13-3 last year, last year, they were my preseason Super Bowl pick. I thought, okay, this is the year. Josh Allen, one of the best players in the league. They have all the parts around. They went and got Von Miller. Everything seemed to be like, okay, they're going to want revenge. What happened against Kansas City in the playoffs, almost beating them, all that good stuff. I thought Buffalo, but then they obviously saw what happened to them against Cincinnati. Matt, when you look at Buffalo, maybe not much as Josh Allen, but I feel like there's got to be a lot of pressure on Sean McDermott to get this team over the hump this season.
Yeah, I agree. That seems to be the issue with the Bills. I mean, you look at them from this year to last year, not a whole lot's changed. They're still a really good team. They have a really good quarterback. The defense is loaded at all three levels. They have everything. They have everything to be a Super Bowl contender. And yeah, like you said, last year, I think a lot of people went into the year kind of thinking the Bills were going to avenge that collapse to the Chiefs in the divisional round in 2021. And then here you are, they're getting beat by the Bengals at home. And sometimes I just wonder if they're just one of those teams that just always comes close and never quite gets there, because it seems like every year there's always something in their way. In 21, it was the Chiefs coming back with 13 seconds. Last year they played in tough conditions against a Bengals pass rush that was all over Josh Allen and contained him. And it's just like, I don't know, it seems like they have everything. That's what's so amazing. Like if I'm pointing out a team to win the Super Bowl, Buffalo's probably one of my first two or three teams that I would choose from. But it just seems like every year something gets in their way. Maybe this is the year that changes, but I also wonder sometimes if Buffalo needs to sort of abandon that high octane, not abandon, but maybe lean towards the rushing game a little bit more and not rely so much on Josh Allen and his arm, given where they play. I mean, they can play playoff games in blizzards, and it's so hard to score. I think they need to change the way they play in crunch time. I think they need to become a better team on the ground. I'm not saying Josh Allen should only throw the ball 20 times a game in the postseason, but they need to sort of become a more balanced offense in crunch time. And I think they're also sort of lacking that pass rush. You know, they finished middle of the pack last year with 40 sacks. I think that's maybe what they're missing to make it to that elite level and break through and get to the Super Bowl is a pass rush that can win you games in the postseason when maybe the offense isn't having as good of a day.
Yeah, and I agree with you on both fronts. The running game, I think we've talked about the Bills before. That's kind of something that they've got capable running backs there. James Cook, obviously the brother of Dalvin Cook. Damian Harris, they brought in from New England, has played well. He's a guy you can bring in. He can get you some good carries and some good production out of him. But also, you know, the pass rush. And last year, I thought first half of the year, Von Miller, I mean, the guy, he's not as good as he was when Denver won the Super Bowl, but he's still a really good player getting to the quarterback. I think he had 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 12 quarterback hits, and then he got injured. And then I really felt like when he got hurt, their pass rush went away.
Yeah, definitely. No, it seems like it was overly dependent on him. They've drafted players at that position. They drafted edge rushers, and it just seems like they can't get any of that talent developed to the point where they can sort of have a 1-2 punch on the edge. And that's what I think holds them back a little bit. They need to find a way to, when it matters, get to guys like Mahomes, you know, create those, long down and distances with a good pass rush. That seems to be sort of the missing element. Now, again, Von Miller gets hurt last year. If he doesn't get hurt, maybe the Bills go all the way. It seems like there's like one thing every year that just kind of stops Buffalo from reaching that plateau and that ceiling. But maybe this year with a healthy Miller, the pass rush gets better towards the postseason. But, you know, other than that and maybe a little bit more reliance on the run game, this team is outstanding. I mean, it's well coached. It's got everything you could ask for in a Super Bowl contender. Maybe they just need some good weather luck in Buffalo if they get home field advantage and, you know, some healthy injury luck. So that seems to be what they're missing. It's just getting through, breaking through that expectation and that pressure.
Yeah, and moving on to Miami Dolphins, and honestly, when I originally was going over these teams, kind of doing my prep work for our conversation, I was looking at the Dolphins. And you know what? I might be leaning Dolphins, but the injury, which we'll get to that in a second about with Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
But I think any conversation around the Dolphins, it all hinges on the health of Tua. Can he stay healthy? Because Matt, anytime we see him get hit and his head hits the ground, we're all going to kind of gasp our air because we're like, okay, is he going to get up? Because just what happened last year with him. And I think when they played the Packers on Christmas Day last year, so I think it was obvious he must have got hit on his head. And he was throwing interceptions right to the Packer defenders. There was no Miami players in the area where he was throwing it. But, I mean, is that how it is for you? Is it just kind of all this hinges on Tua and can he stay healthy?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's huge. I mean, if you look across the NFL and go, what team can go 12-5 or 5-12? I think it's the Miami Dolphins. They have just such a wide range of outcome possibilities because of Tua and because of we'll get to Ramsey, but that's a huge loss for that defense. And yeah, I've been high on Miami entering the preseason. They're a team that I think, you know, prior to the news of yesterday, I would have, or Thursday, I should say, I would have vouched for them to win the division. But yeah, it's just there's just so much that can go wrong. Now that being said, I did like the decision to bring in Mike White as the backup. And, you know, as a Jets fan, I watched a lot of Mike White last year. I don't know if he's going to be a prolific answer for the Dolphins should Tua get hurt, but at least he's competent. If they can protect him in Miami like the Jets couldn't, I think you could get probably 85% of what Tua would give you. So I do think that Mike White gives them a nice insurance policy in case Tua gets hurt. And if Tua stays healthy, I really think the sky is the limit for this offense. I'm not as high on the defense anymore now that Jalen Ramsey is hurt, and I know we'll segue to that. But, you know, this team has they could win the Super Bowl, or they could be picking 6th overall. You know, it's just there's so many factors that come into play with this team. They're not nearly as stable as a team like Buffalo or even the Jets.
Yeah, and you brought up Mike White, and that's something a lot of teams can't say they have. Because the way practices and just teams are run now, the backup quarterback rarely gets any reps now. But now you've got a guy, Mike White was, you know, one of three quarterbacks that did play last year with the Jets. He has shown some good stuff when he does. He's not a guy, obviously, he's not your franchise quarterback or a guy you want starting the entire season. But like I said, if Tua does go down for a week or two or he has to be out, Mike White's got to come in, because when you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the outside, two of the fastest receivers in the NFL, it kind of helps too. I mean, so you're pretty much playing point guard. Just distribute the ball to those guys, and they'll do something for you.
Right. Yeah, and in that offense, McDaniel's so good at scheming those speedsters open in Hill and Waddle. Yeah, it does. Neither Tua nor Mike White has to do a whole lot, and that's what I think the greatness of the Miami offense is, and why I'm high on them this year is it's so well designed. Again, another team that maybe needs to find a solution at running back and get that ground game going a bit more to put less pressure on Tua and maybe give him a few less dropbacks per game. But yeah, I mean, all the pieces are there. As a Jets fan, I was disappointed that they couldn't retain Mike White. Now, we obviously will talk to who they acquired over the offseason, and they still have Zach Wilson there, who I guess is a competent backup now. But I was bummed that the Jets couldn't bring him back, because he's competent, and that's maybe all Miami needs. I mean, if you can just deliver the ball to Tyreek Hill in space, he can kind of do the rest for you. So, yes, the Dolphins have a low ceiling based on what happened, a low floor based on what, if Tua can stay healthy. But if Mike White has to come in, I think the Dolphins are still in an okay spot, and they're still a team I like to make the playoffs. Now, the defense is a whole other story, and I'm guessing we'll talk about that in a second. But that was my biggest concern coming into the season was can that defense take the next step?
Yeah, that's where we're at right now with the defense. Last year, they were the 18th overall ranked defense in the league, 4th against the run, but they're 27th in the pass. So then you bring in Jalen Ramsey. So, okay, that should help fix that. And then Xavier Howard last year was dealing with a lot of injuries. Big reason why he probably struggled a lot last season. We said, okay, he's coming in healthy. Jalen Ramsey's coming in. We've got two solid corners. Jalen Ramsey, really good corner. And now with the injury he had, knee injury, and I think I saw something that he could be out, maybe come back in December. So now you're without him most of the season. They bring in Vic Fangio as defense coordinator, but now that kind of has to hamper things, because, like I said, they were probably thinking, okay, Jalen Ramsey's coming in. We've solved that problem of our pass defense being an issue. Right.
That's exactly, as of 3 days ago, that's what I was thinking. Okay, the Dolphins have, and that was why I was high on the Dolphins. They addressed their major issues. I mean, they were 25th in pass defense DVOA last year. They're going to get Howard back and healthy, hopefully. They bring in Jalen Ramsey to be that, 1A, 1B corner alongside Howard. And then you bring in one of the best defensive coordinators in the league in Vic Fangio, and you go, okay, now we're talking. This defense could take a major leap forward. Unfortunately, with Ramsey going down, the upside for this defense does take a dip. But I am still hopeful, and I think pretty confident that Fangio is going to get some things turned around on that defense. So just by scheme alone, Miami could take a leap forward defensively, but obviously the ceiling and the potential of that defense is obviously takes a step back with no Ramsey.
So I'm going to jump into the Patriots now. And look, that was a monumental mistake Bill Belichick made last year by having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge basically being your offensive coordinators. I think Matt Jones probably shouldn't have done it, but I also kind of don't blame him for yelling at them on the sidelines constantly. Last season, I was always like, Mac, I understand why you're doing that though, but you probably don't need to do that. The last guy could do that, but that was Tom Brady. But they bring in Bill O'Brien, and you look at the Patriots, we figured they're going to be good defensively. It's got to be the offense. But, Matt, I look at their play. I mean, they went and got Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, back a receiver. They did go sign tight end Mike Gesicki, who is probably a better fit with them than he was with the Dolphins. But, I mean, wherever Mac Jones is in his development, I just don't feel like the Patriots have – they don't have any players on their team at the skill position that teams are going to say, oh, no, I'm afraid of this player. I don't feel like they have any explosive players.
No, they really don't. They don't have any players with much upside, and they let a guy who I thought was pretty talented, Jacoby Myers, walk out the door to Vegas. So yeah, I mean, you bring in Juju, and I don't know. I think we talked about Juju as a guy I was pretty high on from a fantasy football perspective, because I thought he was going to feast with Patrick Mahomes as sort of that primary slot receiver, and never really happened. So, I mean, if he's not going to be able to thrive with Mahomes, I don't think things are going to get any better with Mac Jones. And yeah, it's just, I love Ramondre Stevenson. I think that guy is a future stud running back in the making, but there's really a lot of boring options across the field for Mac Jones to throw to. And maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe just bringing in a competent offensive coordinator like Bill O'Brien is all this offense needs to just be league average. And if they're league average, you pair that with a defense that finished third in DVOA, that's coached by Bill Belichick, that's kind of rinse and repeat. They're going to be one of the top 10 units in the league. Maybe that gets you 9-10 wins, and that gets you in the postseason. I think this is the year for Mac Jones. I think it's a prove it year, and I don't know if New England's equipped him with the best tools for success, but it's going to have to work. And maybe just bringing in O'Brien, similar to what the Dolphins are doing with Fangio, maybe just by scheme alone, this offense takes a leap. How high of a leap that is, hard to say, probably not that high. But if they can just get to above, middle of the pack in DVOA offensively, if they can sort of lean on Stevenson and maybe just have Mac Jones become a game manager, the defense will give you a shot every week. So again, this is what I think we're all going to agree is the fourth best team in this division. They could still challenge for a wild card spot. I can't quite rule out Bill Belichick yet in his power and his dark magic or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's just like I have doubts, but then he's the coach, so it kind of evens out. So this is kind of like the main event of our conversation, the New York Jets, which is interesting. I feel like we've been here before. I feel like the Packers have traded a quarterback to the Jets before, and it just deja vu all over me, Matt. But the New York Jets, of course, Aaron Rodgers is now going to be the quarterback there. They were 7-10 last year, 7-4, lost 6 straight. You kind of mentioned this at the top. They were kind of in there in the playoff hunt, then they fell off there at the end. Just your thoughts. Aaron Rodgers coming to this roster, you got good weapons. You got Garrett Wilson, tremendous receiver last year, 83 catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. They bring in Lazard and Randall Cobb to kind of give some familiarity to Aaron Rodgers, people he's comfortable with. You look at the defense with this team. I mean, they're super talented, one of the top defenses in the league. You got Sauce Gardner at corner, defensive, rookie of the year, top guy there. They can get pressure on the quarterback. Quentin Williams up front. You got Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers, linebacker C.J. Mosley played really well last year. They got him back. So you look at the Jets and Aaron Rodgers coming in. How are you feeling about this team? Is this team just a playoff contender? Or do you think this team got potential to kind of go beyond just getting to the postseason?
Before I answer that question, how long have we been doing this together, Phil? Are we going on like 5-6 years?
Let's see. We
Roughly?
Started doing this when I was doing the radio show, and that was in 2017.
Okay, about 6 years. I think in the 6 years since we've met and been doing this show together, this is the first time I think I've been this optimistic, if optimistic at all, about the Jets. That being said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think people who expect this team to win the Super Bowl and pull sort of the Tom Brady to Tampa Bay repeat narrative, I get it. I understand it. It's kind of the low-hanging fruit argument. I think the expectations are too high. I think the Jets are a playoff contender in this first season. I think the expectation is to break the longest playoff drought in not just the NFL, but in professional sports. And to me, that would be a tremendous season. I mean, last year they went 7-10. It was still so much fun to watch that team, and just be relevant in the NFL in November. I mean, I can't remember the last time the Jets were relevant. It was probably the Ryan Fitzpatrick 2015 season where they were in the playoff running and late in the year. I mean, they haven't been relevant since then. And before that, it was the AFC title runs. So obviously, Aaron Rodgers raises the floor of this offense a ton. I mean, you're going from Zach Wilson, who I don't think knew how to read NFL defenses. He was a horrible decision maker, to, if nothing else, an established, highly, highly, highly competent veteran who knows where to go with the ball, who is as accurate as all heck. He will not make near the mistakes that Zach Wilson made. And that might be even selling that might be selling Rodgers short. I mean, I'm kind of lowballing what I really think of him as a player. I mean, I still think he's a tremendous quarterback. I think what happened in Green Bay, and Phil, you can attest to this, I just think they didn't have the weapons. I think the loss of Devontae Adams was just a crucial loss, and expecting him to succeed with 2 rookie receivers and then whatever happened with his thumb was just too much for him to overcome. The reason I have concern about the Jets is, one, the schedule, particularly the first 6 games. Let me just read them off to you. Versus the Bills on Monday night. Then you go to Dallas. Then you host New England, who's like the boogeyman for them. Then you host Kansas City in primetime. Then you go to Denver, and then you go to you host Philadelphia. That's your first 6 games, and then you go on your bye week. I mean, people are going to be crying in the tabloids in New York if the Jets start the season 3-3. But if you ask me, that is a perfect start, because then the schedule starts to open up a bit. But you have to get through those first 6 games, and unfortunately, I think this offense is going to go through some growing pains. I mean, it's a lot of new parts. It's a new quarterback. It's a young offense. I think there's going to be some growing pains for the Jets. Not that they're going to be bad, but I think if they can start the year 3-3, that'll be a huge win. The other reason I'm concerned is the offensive line. That unit was probably what killed them the most last year. Obviously, Zach Wilson was terrible, but that offensive line was wretched. And if they drafted Joe Tippmann in the 2nd round to be their starting center, hopefully, and they hopefully get Mekhi Becton back healthy and Dwayne Brown, and maybe they can patch together. Even just an average unit would be a huge win. And the third, and this might surprise you, is I want to see this defense do it again. Obviously, tons of talent. I mean, all 3 levels. I mean, I think the Jets could have the deepest defensive line and edge rushers in the league. I mean, they are just stacked. I think they can go 3 deep with at some of those positions. But they played a lot of backup quarterbacks last year. I think they played like 6 or 7 backup quarterbacks or 3rd-string quarterbacks. So I want to see what they do when you're going up against Allen, Mahomes, Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Like, how do they fare against some of the, I would say, the 3 best teams in the league and the 3 best quarterbacks in the league right off the bat? So that's what I want to see, and those are the 3 reasons why I'm still wildly optimistic. And if they go 10-7, 11-6, I'll be thrilled. I'm still expecting them to make the playoffs, but if things went wrong, I think those are the 3 areas where it could happen.
On the Rodgers stuff you're talking about last year, of course, everybody knows me. I'm a Packers fan, so I watched every game they played last season. I think the thumb was an issue. He was not as accurate as he normally is. You're right. With the youth at wide receiver they had last year, especially the first half year. But I'm also going to throw that off on him because he's doing something with the Jets he did not do last year with the Packers. I think if he had been there more in training camp or played more in the preseason, made more of an effort to kind of create some connection with those rookie receivers, I think the Packers probably win a game or 2 more than they did last season, and that gets them in the playoffs. I don't think the Packers would have been a Super Bowl team last year if he had done that, but I also believe they probably could have got some more games because it took a while for the Packers to kind of get going when they found something
right.
with the rookie receivers. But he's not doing that. He's doing the opposite with the Jets, and I think that's a good sign. And so, and look, he's just got to bring energy to the team that he's there now. That is obviously. I mean, look, Zach Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers. I have a guy behind center. Like, okay, this guy. We have a guy. I have a dude at quarterback now that gives us a chance to win anytime we get on the football field.
Exactly, and that's what makes me so excited. Is I'm not even sure. In my lifetime, I haven't seen a quarterback even remotely close to Aaron Rodgers, who he's going to make throws and decisions that you're just not used to seeing. When I watch the Jets, I expect the quarterback to throw the ball right into the other team's hands, kind of like what Wilson did last season. You're conditioned for that. And how you go from a guy like Wilson to Aaron Rodgers, who, again, even if he's just average, elevates this team so much. I mean, just by knowledge of his offense and decision-making alone, it just is it's so much better. And as long as he stays healthy, I think this offense could be really good. I mean, Garrett Wilson's a stud. I think Breece Hall will take some time to get back, but now there are rumors that Dalvin Cook could be coming to town, and that gives you a pretty lethal 1-2 punch in the backfield once Hall is fully healthy. It comes down to, can the offensive line pave the way enough? And there's a lot to look forward to. It's going to be the most fun I've probably had watching the Jets in a long, long time, perhaps ever. But it's not, I didn't like the whole narrative once the Jets landed Rodgers officially of, well, Super Bowl contenders. That's obviously the goal and the ambition. I think it's unrealistic in a conference that has the Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills all vying for that top spot, and teams like Baltimore who could be really good. I don't think I think it's asking a lot for them to sort of pull the Brady. I'm not sure this is going to go the route of the Russell Wilson to Denver. I don't think things will go that bad. I think they'll be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with this team. And hey, look, in 15 years, Jordan Love will be the starting quarterback for the New York Jets too. So had to do it. Had to do it.
Oh yeah, it always comes full circle.
Oh yeah, everything does. It was funny to me. But anyways, as we kind of get out of here, Matt, I have a feeling where you're going to go with 1 through 4. But how do you see the division?
I think the Bills win the division. They just have every piece you could ask for. I think it's going to be about the playoffs for them. But I think if they stay healthy, if Allen stays healthy, they're the team to beat in the AFC East. I have them first. I will flip. I originally was going to have the Dolphins, but now with the Ramsey news, I just think that's such a significant loss. I will put the Jets second at that sort of 11-6, 10-7 range. Because, again, the AFC is just a gauntlet. There's really no easy games on the schedule. I think Miami finishes third. Now, whether they make the playoffs, I think depends on sort of if Ramsey comes back, and if he comes back close to where he was as that elite cornerback. But I still think they have enough of explosiveness on offense to win games, 42-35 if they have to. And then I think the Patriots could be a fourth place 8-9 team. I think the floor is really high with the defense. It's a matter of whether Mac Jones takes that leap, but they just don't have the caliber of talent that the teams ahead of them do. So I'm going Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Patriots.
All right, and actually, I agree with you 100%. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Preseason is next week. The Jets will be playing the Browns in the Hall of Fame game, but it's here. It's here. It's amazing. And then we'll fly through that. We'll get to the regular season. Well, anyways, Matt, it's always fun having you on the show. Where can everybody check you out if they want to listen, follow your work?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, I'm at Twitter at Real Matt Barbato, and then you can follow my work on Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros.
All right, sounds good, Matt. Always appreciate the time, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime down the road.
Phil, you know where to find me, man. Always happy to come on. Thank you.